we're all connected. There's one mind. Everything is connected. We are all exist in this mind. The mind isn't separate, or it's not like God is off on a cloud somewhere. We are engulfed and live in this mind, and it creates our reality, our what seems to be physical reality, which, of course, as we've just said, is really energy.
You're listening to Inspire Me with Jay, where science meets spirit and stories of meditation and the near-death experience awaken what's possible within us all. I'm Jay, and this is your moment to be inspired. Welcome to Inspire Me with Jay. I'm your host, Jay Spillers. I have a guest today, Stephen Martin. How are you?
I'm doing great. Good to be with you, Jay.
Yeah, you were a guest on my show a couple years ago talking about evidence for the near-death experience.
Right. That's right. I've written several books about that, about afterlife and whether our consciousness continues, that sort of thing. And my new book has some things to do with that, but it's more who we are and what we are and why we're here kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. What got you interested in spiritual, metaphysical type topics?
Well, you know, I grew up in a family that was not very spiritual at all. We went to church maybe at Christmas and Easter, but that was about it. And of course, in school, I learned basic scientific materialist thought, which is that the only thing that exists is physical reality, and that we are basically, I don't know what you would say, meat robots with computer-like brains that create our consciousness. And then I had an experience when I was about 25 years old. I was really very sick with the flu. And long story short, I realized there was a party going on downstairs in my apartment that I shared with two other guys. And so I decided to get up and pretend I was well, and ended up having a few drinks. And then somebody was passing around a funny looking cigarette, and I took a couple of puffs of that. And before I knew it, I could hardly stand up. I was about to pass out. And I managed to practically crawl my way back upstairs to my bed, and I fell down on it, and it was spinning around, it seemed like. And before I knew it, I felt okay. And I thought, oh, I wonder what happened. I'm okay now. And then I realized I was up near the ceiling, and I was looking at the cracks in the ceiling, and then I looked down and I saw my body on the bed, sprawled out like roadkill. Anyway, I realized from that experience that I was not my body, which I'd always thought I was. I always thought it was my body, and I'm not. I'm my consciousness. That's what came to me in that experience. And I wanted to figure out what the heck was going on, because that was not what I learned when I was growing up and when I went to school. And so from then on, and it's been over 50 years now, I've been trying to figure out what the true nature of reality is, and why we humans are here on Earth, and all that kind of those big questions like that. And that's what this new book is about, New Theory of Human Life and Existence. I've tried to pull together all the credible information I can find, and that I've discovered over the last 50 years, scientific evidence and so forth, and put it all in this book, so that if anybody wants to find out what's really going on and why they're here and what they are, they need to read this book. It's called A New Theory of Human Life and Existence.
So you had a near-death experience then, but I guess it didn't really go too deep, other than seeing yourself on the bed and having perception around the room.
Yeah, that's right, Jay. I didn't have the full-blown near-death experience that many people have, where they seem to go through a tunnel toward a light, and they have a past life review and all that sort of thing. Of course, there have been thousands of reports of that kind of thing happening. Mine was not full-blown. Later on, though, when I was about maybe 35, and I had been studying all this stuff, and I actually joined the Rosicrucian Society, which is a society of people who study metaphysics. It's not a religion at all. It's more, what is the true nature reality. And I was in my backyard. I was married, had a child at that time, and it was a beautiful day, beautiful sunny blue sky and all that. And I had what's called a mystical experience, where I felt like my consciousness merged with the infinite mind, and it was just a mind-blowing kind of experience, like many people have with a near-death experience. So that confirmed what I had been studying and learned about with all the metaphysical stuff that I'd gone through. So yeah, but that first one was just enough to open my eyes to the reality that we are not our bodies, we are our consciousness.
And so, like, in your book, what is your new theory? Could you kind of lay it out in a nutshell?
Yeah, basically, the theory is, and this is backed up with evidence from quantum physics experiments and from work that's been done at the Division of Perceptual Studies at the University of Virginia over the past 60 years or so. And that is that we are each part of one life, one intelligence that is in the process of becoming, and that we are sort of like probes that have been set out to experience this reality and what can be experienced in this physical reality that cannot be experienced in other non-physical realities, which is really where we come from. Because here we have the idea, or we get the idea, that we are separate individuals, separate from everybody else. And life here is difficult, and we have to, we have to eat to stay alive. We have to have money to put a roof over our head. All those things don't come easy. And what happens as a result of living in this environment, thinking that we're separate from everything else, is that we have hardships, and we have difficulties, and we have obstacles to overcome. And what that does is cause us to evolve and to become, to learn, to experience. And that's why we're here. We're here to experience and to learn and to evolve, because the one mind, the one life that we come to, wants to experience itself and to evolve. And we are part of that process of evolving. And life on Earth has been evolving for the last 3.8 trillion years. So, a billion years, I mean. So that in a nutshell is my theory. And I lay out a lot of information that comes from credible sources to support that theory. So there you go.
It's sort of like, it's basically the idea that we're all part of God, and we come down, and God experiences the world through us. And, it's kind of like in Christian teaching, there's the incarnation of Christ, but in a sense, he has billions of incarnations in this world, and maybe even trillions, because there could be intelligent life in the universe as well.
Absolutely.
Is that like the beginning? Yeah.
That's a good way to put it. I often shy away from the use of the word God, because that carries some baggage with it, but I prefer to call it source or infinite mind. but God works too. I think that Jesus was what he said he was. He was he and the Father were one. I think he said that many times. But I think that what we don't realize is that we're all like Jesus. We just don't realize it. We're all at one with the Father because we all share the same consciousness. We come from the source, from the Father, from God, and we're here to experience, and God experiences his creation through us. We are his probes that have been sent out to experience and to evolve. And Jesus just happened to be more evolved and advanced than anybody in his day, and most of us in this day. I believe that his teachings are right on 100%. I think that some of the doctrine that's grown up around in the church around his teachings is kind of off base, but I think everything Jesus said is a fact and true. So there you go.
Well, so do you think that we will ultimately retain our individual consciousness, or will we merge into the one consciousness of Source at some point in the future?
I think both. I think that we will retain our individual consciousness, our sense of I am, and I think that we will eventually, we got a long, long way to go, but eventually we will merge back with the source. I think that's the ultimate goal. I think that we each have probably a higher self or a oversoul, if you want to call it, that kind of is the intermediary between us and the infinite mind, but that we are sent out by that oversoul or higher self, and that our higher self helps guide us. I think we all have a contract that we've made before we got here to accomplish certain things, to do certain things. And when we're on the right track, I think that's when synchronicities occur. Synchronicity being a word that was coined by Carl Jung that means that it seems like a coincidence, but it actually happens for a reason. And I think the reason is for our higher self or oversoul to guide us. And when we're on the right path, synchronicities happen, and that's been the case with me, and I talk about some of them in the book that we're discussing. So yeah, that's what I think. I think you're right. I think eventually we'll merge back in to the infinite mind, but we will keep our sense of self, of I am, and all the memories that go with it. So there you go.
So, I mean, in a sense, since we all come from the source or from God, nothing can ever really be lost, because everything would have to eventually reconcile itself back into the one.
That's right. There's an infinite mind that has all the memories of everything that ever happened to anybody. That's what, if you're aware of Edgar Cayce, who lived from 1877 to 1945, he would put himself he was known during his time as the sleeping prophet, because he would put himself into a trance twice a day and answer people's questions, most of which had to do with medical issues, but also a lot of questions that had to do with the big ones, like why we're here and what life is all about. And he tapped into that infinite mind, into what he called the Akashic records, which he said were like the memory of everybody's memory, what Carl Jung called the universal unconscious, or the universal subconscious, that it is that everything that's ever happened is recorded, just like today we have everything that's going on on the internet recorded in the cloud. Well, the cloud for the infinite mind is the memory of everything. Yeah, if nothing is ever lost. You were correct about that. So there you go. Yeah.
Well, I think that when you start to realize that you're one, like I think you talked about this a few years ago, that once you realize you're one, then all prejudice against other people, whether based on race, sexual orientation, ethnicity, whatever, doesn't really make any sense because we're all part of that one. We're all interconnected then.
Absolutely, 100%. That's one of the things that I'm trying to get out there with this book and other books that I've written, as you've mentioned. The idea that we are one life, and all these superficial differences because of religion or because of skin color or whatever it might be are really irrelevant. We're all one at the core, and we're all in this together. We're each one of us a probe sent out by the source to experience all these many different things that we're experiencing: the good, the bad, and the ugly. And the fact that we've got to run up against an obstacle is we should think, well, what am I going to learn from this? What is this obstacle presenting itself for? What's in this for me to overcome this, that I'm going to learn from it, rather than thinking, oh my, I'll try to avoid this if I can, or I'm a victim and people are just out to get me, kind of thing. Those kind of thoughts are totally counterproductive. We're here to learn, to overcome obstacles, and to grow and evolve. And the way we do that is by putting our best foot forward and kind of trying to get through it the best way we can, and loving our neighbor, and just as Jesus said. So there you go.
So, in terms of like this idea is attractive and it seems intuitive at some level. What is the kind of evidence, or what convinces you that we are one?
Well, let me give you a couple examples there of why I think that. One of the big ones is quantum physics. Quantum physicists will tell you that all of reality is connected. That reality is not really solid. Matter is not solid stuff the way we think of it or the way we experience it. It's actually energy. E equals mc squared. Energy equals mass times the speed of light squared. And so there's nothing that's really solid. It's all vibrations. Energy that's vibrating. And so there's no place where one vibration stops and another one starts. Everything is connected. It's one organic whole. And I go on to say that it's not only energy, it's energy that is conscious. It is mind. Everything takes place in this mind of energy. And the evidence for that is also in quantum physics experiments where, for example, in the double slit experiment, which has to do with how light behaves, whether it's a wave or a particle, depends on what the researcher who's conducting the experiment knows or thinks. Whatever he knows or thinks determines the outcome of that experiment. And that happens because his mind is at one with the infinite mind that we're all part of, including all the elements of the experiment. How else could a photon know how to behave, whether it's a wave or a particle, if based on what the researcher's thinking, if we weren't all part of the same mind? The same mind influences, or the researcher's mind, and determines the outcome of the experiment. There are other scientific studies that have been done that also, for example, at the University of Virginia, they have a division called the Division of Perceptual Studies. It's called DOPS, D-O-T-S. And they've been studying consciousness for about 60 years. They started with children's memories of past lives. And they also study near-death experiences and what's called terminal lucidity, where people who've been in a coma for months, often right before they die, they become lucid. It's when their mind lets go, their brain lets go of their mind, and they are able to talk to people and be lucid. There are also studies that show that people that have, I think it's called hydrocephalus or something like that, that have water or fluid on their brain, can be just as intelligent as normal people, where their brain really isn't functioning at all or at a very low level. And so what the conclusion that the people at the University of Virginia and this department have come to is that the brain, it does not create consciousness. The brain is a receiver of consciousness, that consciousness really comes from somewhere else. And what it comes from, of course, is the infinite mind that we're all part of. We all share the same consciousness, and we think we're separate because we're encased in this body. We have memories of this life. We have a personal identity or a persona, an ego that's developed over the course of our lives that makes us think that I'm a writer, or I'm a baseball player, or whatever it is that we think we are. The truth is that we're all that's just a persona that's been built up over time. And we do have memories. We have a conscious mind and a unconscious mind that houses our memories. But we're also, beyond that, have like psychics, for example, can get in touch with the infinite mind. There's such a thing as out-of-body travel. There's remote viewing that the government has used to spy on the Soviet Union back in the 70s and 80s, where psychics could go take a look at what the bad guys were up to, that sort of thing. So we're all one mind. We're not bodies with a mind. We're mind with a body, or spirit with a body, if you prefer. And there are a number of other things that I write about in the book that give you information that's been developed by very highly credible sources. There's whether or not, for example, psychic mediums can actually communicate with the dead, or get information from people who are no longer alive physically, that have been studied in double-blind experiments that indicate without a shadow of a doubt that that's possible. Certain people can do that, and I quote studies in that regard, and tell you a little bit about them and give you the references if you want to go check them out yourself. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of evidence to indicate it, and unfortunately it's been ignored by most traditional scientists because they think they've got it all figured out with the scientific materialism, or physicalism as it's come to be called. And they're wrong, because, I mean, don't get me wrong, science is great. It's done wonderful things. But the idea that all that exists is material substance is not correct. There you go, Jay. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I agree with that too. So, I mean, it's kind of like our bodies are just more like a vehicle, like a car that help us navigate through the physical world, is helpful that way, but it's not our true essence or consciousness. That when the body dies, we continue to live on, and we can take on a spiritual body or an energy body and exist on planes that may look very much like Earth in many respects, like what the near-death experience talks about, in a different plane. And that's kind of what you're saying, right?
That is what I'm saying. The way I look at it, I compare the human body to a diving suit, like they used to wear back, 50, 60 years ago, and go down to a shipwreck or whatever, and you'd have this diving bell on and this suit, and that enabled you to operate in that environment under the water. Well, we have this meat suit that we wear that enables us to function in this reality, which is, it's like an overcoat that eventually we're going to shed, and it'll rot in the ground, but it's not us. It's we have a etherical body, a body that's spiritual. It's kind of it's inside this meat, but when we die, it leaves and it goes on to other realities.
Well, and there's an astrophysicist. He's Japanese, and he talks about basically like a energy field, and describes it. It sounds very similar to what people in religion would call God, but he doesn't use the term. Is quantum physics getting close to basically saying there is such a thing as a soul? Maybe use a different term. There is such a thing as an afterlife. There is such a thing as a ultimate reality and intelligence of some sort. Are they almost there?
Well, I think there are scientists who are making that claim and giving evidence for it. As far as quantum physics is concerned, what it basically says is we're all connected. There's one mind. Everything is connected. We are all exist in this mind. The mind isn't separate, or it's not like God is off on a cloud somewhere. We are engulfed and live in this mind, and it creates our reality, our what seems to be physical reality, which, of course, as we've just said, is really energy, vibrations. It's what the Hindus figured this out 5,000 years ago, and they call physical reality Maya, which means illusion in their language. They really, from what I've read about the Hindu religion and what people back 5,000 years ago figured out, I think they figured all this out then. We're just rediscovering it. So there you go.
Well, and we're connected to everything, right? It's not just that all humans are connected, but we are connected to everything in the physical world, in the physical universe, animals and trees and so forth, right?
Yeah, everything, rocks and water, and it all comes from consciousness, the same consciousness, the one consciousness, the infinite consciousness. Yes, the answer is yes. We're all everything. We're all part of this one life that is evolving.
Well, it's like they've had studies where, people will say or have certain feelings towards plants or towards water, and it can impact the water itself, that there's a certain vibrational energy that interconnects us to these different things, that, you can make a change with your mind.
That's right. You have a bad situation where there's a lot of stress and so forth, and then you freeze that water, and it'll crystallize in a way that kind of indicates that that's picked up on that stress and horror or whatever it is. Whereas if you have a loving situation, it'll be a totally different pattern that comes out. So yeah, the water is picking up on it. Everything picks up on it. plants are conscious. They're in my book that we've been talking about. I talk about studies that have done that show that plants pick up on people's emotions and feelings. The idea of a green thumb, is real. There was this guy named Clyde Baxter who was a specialist with polygraph machines, lie detectors, and he hooked up a plant in his office to a lie detector, and he tried to figure out if he could make it the plant react. And he tried different things, and finally he sat, and nothing happened. He finally sat there and said, "Now what can I do to see if this plant will actually react?" And he said, "I could burn it." And when he thought that, the plant reacted. I saw an experiment that took place. I think it was a video shown on, I think it was PBS or Discovery Channel, but I saw it on television. It was one of Baxter's experiments where he had the plants hooked up to the polygraph machine. He had boiling water boiling, and he took live shrimp and poured it into the boiling water. And when he did that, the plants went crazy with the polygraph machine, because they reacted to the horrible death that the shrimp were experiencing. So, everything is conscious. People say even non-physical things are conscious. I don't know, but I do think that they can have some sort of, their memory in them, something that was a ring for your grandparents or whatever. I think there's something to all that. That's something I haven't studied a whole lot, how objects can be imbued with some sort of memory too. But I think it must be possible, because underlying everything, consciousness. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was going to say, so in terms of our health, our physical health, obviously diet, exercise, don't smoke, those kind of things are helpful, but is the most important thing for physical health where our mindset is then?
I think,
because you can see people, yeah.
I think, there's, I think what you believe, the idea that you create your own reality is true, as far as I can tell. And so if you're if you're a hypochondriac, you're going to get sick. If you think you're a victim, you're going to be a victim. If you think you're going to die at 42, you're going to die at 42. I mean, our beliefs and our attitudes create our reality. And so, yeah, what you believe, what you think, what you have in your subconscious mind is going to create your reality with that, and that means your health as well as other things. If you think you're lucky, you're going to be lucky. If you believe you're going to live to 100, you'll live to 100. I think that all that is true, and so have a positive attitude. Try to figure out what's in your subconscious mind you may not even be aware of that's creating problems for you, and that's one of the ways you grow is by if the same kinds of problems keep appearing in your life, then there must be something in your mind that's attracting that. The basic law of metaphysics, and I learned this when I was a Rosicrucian, is like attracts like. If you believe something, if you think you're such and such a way, then yes, that's what you're going to be, and what you're going to attract is stuff that reinforces that belief. And so the most powerful thing you can do for good health is to, of course, do all the right things as far as not smoking and eating like Mediterranean diet and whatever else, but is the belief that you're going to be well, that your immune system is working just the way it ought to, and keeping those bad things out. Yeah.
So the law of attraction is basically true.
The law of attraction is true. Like attracts like. You have to be what you want to attract. If it's a matter of true confidence. If you want to have a good life, true confidence that good things are going to come your way, and good things will come your way. But if you have any doubts, you're torpedoing it. It's not easy to do, but it's more difficult in practice than it is to say. But it's true. You have to be what you want to as a human being. It's your vibrational level or something that attracts what you get, and that all comes from what's in your subconscious mind. So if you're not getting what you want, consciously want, then subconsciously something's going on that needs to be dealt with and expunged from your subconscious mind. You got to get rid of it and overcome it. And there are a couple of ways to do that. One is to meditate and go back in time to see, it may have even been from a previous life. And so there are regression therapists who can help you with that. But another way is just to, when something happens and you react to it, before you react, stop and think, now why? What happened sometime? What is in my subconscious mind that's making me react this way? That's causing me this discomfort or whatever? What happened that is a memory or a belief that's buried there? That's because, well, Shakespeare said, there's nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. And that's a true statement. What happens to one person and he thinks it's bad, the same thing may happen to somebody else. They may see an opportunity in it. So analyze your reactions. And when you've got a reaction that's negative, then something's in your subconscious mind that you need to deal with. That's what I think.
Well, in terms of like other people too, if someone is upset and reacting, is it best just to remain calm and realize that they're operating out of the certain energy that they're in at this moment? And if you can help them to get calmer, sure,
Yeah, I think, yeah. I mean, once you realize what we've just been talking about, that it's not what happens that causes you to react. It's what you have inside that causes you to react. And anything and everything can be thought of as neutral. Somebody, if you see somebody shot, it's a terrible thing, but for someone who's going to think, well, that's a good thing because that was a bad guy. And somebody else will think, well, that's horrible because that was my uncle. Well, it's not what happened, it's what's in you that causes the reaction. And so, yes, if somebody gets mad at you or calls you a dummy or whatever, I mean, that's when that happens to me, I think, well, that's their problem. They don't know what I think or who I am or what I am. They're just an idiot. So I don't react. I'll admit that every once in a while I slip up and do react, and when I do, then that's when I go, now why did that upset me so much? And so that I'll dig down into something maybe that happened when I was 4 or 5 years old, and yeah, okay, that's what it was. Let that one go. And there you go.
You're listening to the Inspire Me with Jay podcast. Please do like and subscribe to the channel, bringing hope and inspiration to the world.
Okay. What do you think?
Well, it's so much. Yeah, I mean, so much of it goes back to how you saw your parents react, not just to you, but how they reacted in situations, and then you can see yourself reacting similar to that a lot of times.
You know, I think it's whether it's the Catholic Church or somebody said, give me a child till they're 7 years old, and and I will show you the man. I mean, if the idea is that you really, your personality, your beliefs, what drives you, your ego, all of that is basically formed, most of it, 90% of it, in the first 7 years of your life. And the first probably 4 years of your life, you're really not even conscious. I mean, do you remember? I don't remember a whole lot. I remember a few things, but very little that happened before I was 4 years old. But yet, that time, those 4 years, were critical in forming my basic beliefs and personality and ego. So yeah, the first 7 years of life are the most important as far as your basic beliefs and the way you operate and deal with the world. It's formed during that time, and it's you mimic your parents. It's how they reacted to you. It's how your teachers and your peers reacted, and what they said and did, and that's where most of your beliefs come from, even now. So it's important, I think, if you want to have a good life, to figure out what are those things you need to get rid of. Clean out the attic, as they say. Yeah.
Like when you're talking about the higher self being sort of an intermediary between the source and ourselves, is that kind of, it's like when you die and have a near-death experience and you see Jesus, I always kind of wonder, are you literally seeing Jesus, or is the higher self creating a representation of Jesus for you? And does the distinction even matter? Because in a sense, even if it's a representation for you, does that become Jesus to you?
Yeah, I would go along with the latter part of what you just said, that it's probably a representation, or is it literally Jesus, and does it even need to be? I kind of think it doesn't need to be, and it probably isn't, but I don't know that. It's just say that Jesus has to be in a lot of different places at one time for it to be actually him, because there are a lot of people that seem to see Jesus when they have that near-death experience, and so obviously the ones who really do die have that experience too. So yeah, I have a friend that I helped write a book who had a near-death experience and saw Jesus. So, but I don't argue with him. That's fine. I mean, it changed him, and he's a better person because of it. And that's what's important.
So, is there any interesting things that came out in your book that you wrote, that you found interesting along the way?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I deal with in the book is the idea that we're going through a period of time when things seem very chaotic. There's a lot of stuff going on that people don't agree with each other, and there's a lot of disharmony. But I think it's because we are going through a period of time where we're moving from the material age, the idea of scientific materialism, to a more spiritual age where we realize that we're all one, and that we need to work together. And I think that's causing the chaos, and that as we move ahead, things will happen. There'll probably be some difficult stuff to deal with, that eventually we're going to end up in a much better place than where we have been. So that's in the book, and I think interesting. And I refer to a lot of people who've had those kind of thoughts and what they think, and I compare those and sort of analyze it and see where we come out. So yeah, that's an interesting concept. I think the idea of a new age, moving from third density to fourth density, or some people call it the fifth dimension, or the age of Aquarius, a new age. I think that we are in the middle of that transition, and so I put that in the book toward the end, and people can read about that if they'd like to know more. Yeah.
So it's sort of like there's a spiritual awakening going on.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good way to put it. Spiritual awakening, and it's I think it's a good thing. But there are people who are going to be, who just refuse to go in that direction. There's this one entity called Ra that I refer to, who basically said that people that during this time, and this was something that was predicted quite a while ago, 40 years ago, that about now we would be going through this, and that people would need to make a choice of whether they were going to be a service to others and use their talents to help others, or if they were going to be service to self and be selfish about it, and just trying to be looking out for number one themselves. And so that's the choice that is before us in this time of transition, I think. And I certainly want to join with the people who want to serve others, and because I think that's the way we need to evolve. But there you go. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, and the thing is too is that it obviously gets very messy, and there could be catalysts that don't even realize they're catalysts, and maybe some people because when you think of spiritual awakening, you think of someone that's like highly enlightened and will be operating like a Christ figure or Buddha. But what if it's someone that's almost like the opposite of that, but it's sort of a catalyst in a way to get us thinking in a different direction? They could be a catalyst too, though.
Oh yeah, just like Hitler was for his people in Germany in 1930s, and they followed him. So yeah, that could happen, and there may be. I think it's possible, and I say this in the book, for the Earth to go one way or the other. It could go either way, but I am optimistic it would be service to others rather than service to self. And maybe the service to self people will end up on some other planet somewhere where they could just have a great time, fighting each other and trying to be king of the hill, because that's what a service to self person is going to do.
So you like Carl Jung then? That was one of the people I think you said, because he actually had a near-death experience himself.
He did have a near-death experience, and certainly changed how he thought about things. And he never really got into reincarnation or whatever, but he did come to the conclusion that we're guided by a higher self. That's what the synchronicities are about. And that we all share a universal subconscious mind that has all the memories of all the people who ever lived, and include things like the archetypes, and the hero and the sage and the different. I think there's something like 12 different archetypes, so that are part of that universal subconscious mind. That Carl Jung is a very interesting guy, has some great thoughts and ideas. and the idea that you need to deal with your shadow, that we all have a shadow side that we try to suppress, and that we can't really be whole and complete until we have a look at that and accept it and deal with it. That's a little bit like the subconscious beliefs and so forth, and looking at those and dealing with them. So yeah, Carl Jung was a very interesting guy with a lot of good ideas, and I guess a lot of it came from that near-death experience that he had.
So if there's archetypes and things like that, is it possible that even someone in a different culture or someone that has a near-death experience that maybe never even knew about Jesus personally or heard about him may experience the Christ in the sense that, the archetype will appear to them because they're kind of dipping into the pool of humanity, and this is kind of coming forward because obviously millions upon millions of people follow Christ, which sort of elevates that energy and then can project it out even to those that may not know who he is. Does that sort of make sense?
Yeah, I think that Carl Jung would say that the archetypes are something that as being part of that universal subconscious mind that all cultures and people, all humans share and can tap into. So yes, I say that's probably right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, and sometimes I think I've seen a couple of near-death experiences where, like, they see a being and it kind of takes the form of Christ and then can take the form of Vishnu and different things. It's like, is it possible that the same entity is all these different other entities that may have appeared at different periods of time and in different cultures? It's all the same thing. It's just taking a different form at that point.
Yeah, I think so. I think there could even be incarnations of the same individual, for that matter. I mean, Buddha lived about 500 years before Christ. Vishnu is even before that. So, yeah, they're all, Buddha's ideas were a little different than Christ, though. I think his idea was that all is one, and that we're all part of the one mind, but that what he was trying to do was tell his followers how to not reincarnate, not to come back. That what brings us back is our desires, our carnal desires, our unfinished business, whatever it is, and that it's better off if you just merge, I guess. When you pass, you merge with the infinite mind and go back to being part of that. That's what he was trying to get his followers to do, which is a little different, I guess, than Jesus. I don't know. I don't think that in Buddhism there's a separate soul or higher self thought of, whereas that certainly is in other religions. Hinduism, it's Atman, I think, in Hinduism is the soul. And of course, Christianity, we have souls. Although the question is whether the soul in Christianity, Christian doctrine, not Jesus, the Christian doctrine is whether the soul existed before birth. And obviously it did, but that to me is a cloudy issue of Christian doctrine. But I think some of the doctrine that grew up after Jesus is off base anyway. The idea of, but I don't want to get into that, spoil people's ideas about Christianity. I go to church, I follow Christ. Some of the things that are in the Christian doctrine are, I think, not correct, but I can live with it because I think Jesus was right on. and the real Megillah.
Well, there's legends that between the ages of 13 and 29, Jesus may have traveled to India and some of the surrounding areas, and he may have interacted with, Buddhists and bringing some of the understandings back, because you can kind of see a little bit reflected in the teachings, and some of his parallels seem very similar to Buddhist parables.
Well, there's even some actual evidence for that issue. I think there are legends in Hinduism of somebody who could have been Jesus and had a name very similar, and was around that time, and that would make sense. I mean, I don't know, but I certainly don't dismiss that as a possibility, that he could have gone to India and spent some time in an ashram or whatever it is, learning the Hindu philosophies and the Hindu ideas, because there definitely are some that are, look like they came from that, some of his ideas.
So what church do you go to? Because you said you go to church. I'm just kind of curious.
Yeah, I go to a church here. I'm from Richmond, Virginia. I go to Hope Church. It's a Presbyterian church, but it's a modern, got a kind of a praise band and some great preaching and good. Usually, they'll do a series on a section of the Bible. It's almost like going to a university class on. And I like the people, and I like the preachers, and I tend to like the sermons a lot. So it kind of feeds me, and my wife and I go every Sunday. So yeah.
Do you, with your understanding, do you kind of think like you see it maybe at a deeper level sometimes?
Well, yeah. I mean, I may not. I don't know if you'd call it a deeper level, but I may get something out of a sermon that was not something that the preacher actually said or pointed to, but came to me as something else that connects into that, that based on my understanding of the way things are. So yeah, that happens all the time, and as long as the teachings are about what Jesus said and taught, I'm going to enjoy it, because I think he knew what he was talking about.
So where can people get your book? It's probably available on Amazon. Is it available anywhere else? Or what? And what is the name of your book?
Amazon's the easiest place to go. It's a new theory of human life and existence, and if you put that into the search bar and my name after, just put Martin or Stephen Martin, it'll pop up. And I hope that people will. Maybe you can put a link in the. I can send you a link to put into the write-up that goes with this. That can take people to the book, if you'd like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll do that.
Okay.
And so, is there like one final last word you'd like to leave with the audience before we close out?
Well, one thing that I'm looking for, I'm also a ghostwriter, and I'm not working on any ghostwriting projects right now. If somebody wants to, has a book, either they've started one, maybe they've got a rough draft, or maybe they have a story they want to tell, or a memoir, or maybe it's about their business or whatever it might be, come to my website and contact me through the contact form, and maybe we could talk about it and see, maybe we can work something out. I can help you write a book and publish it. And I've got a small press, got over 200 books in print. So ghostwriting, or editing and publishing is another one of my things I do, and I'd be happy to help somebody out in that regard. So shmartin, shmartin.com is my website. Come see me. Send me an email.
Oh, well, thanks for coming on today. It was a pleasure to have you.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it, Jay, and maybe we'll do it again sometime.